So listen, here's the deal. We're going to talk about something good, something bad, and then something good again. It's going to be like a happiness sandwich with some shit in the middle of it.
In this episode of Possibly Pickled,
years of service, transitioning to another agency, and because of the standard, that's just what they tend to do. They tend to put you on a probationary period. That has nothing to do with your current
work performance.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Roland, I think. You're too much.
This is Possibly Pickled, and I'm Jodie. We will have to talk about a couple of things. I mean, do we want to talk about something a little more gentler first and then go into the heavier things, or do we want to talk about a heavy thing and then go to a gentle thing?
Oh, like this is a like an interview, not an interview, an evaluation with your supervisor. So listen, here's the deal. We're going to talk about something good, something bad, and then something good again. It's going to be like a happiness sandwich with some shit in the middle of it.
Right. And speaking of evaluations, I think that's one of the things we need to talk about is right now we do have this massive downsizing of the government agencies and the letters that the emails. So that, that's kind of like the respect that they're getting, right? They're getting this email that that's firing them, basically. But it is so generic, and it's telling people it's telling people that their performance is not up. They're not upholding their performance, and it's for the betterment of the country if they quit. If they're fired.
Yeah. So they're having bad performance.
Which is
not true.
And I think that that's one of the issues that we are finding because of who's running this this elimination process, this elimination of
it's
staff.
It's scary when you say it like that, elimination process.
It is scary. But I think that what happens is they're trying to, there are certain, when you're not in a non-government, okay, let me come back. I previously worked for the federal government. I no longer work for the federal government. So I worked for the federal government for
long enough,
many years. So although I'm not currently involved in this reduction force, I am very knowledgeable on the topic.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to put that out there. But when we're talking about eliminate a reduction in force, okay, so RIFs, when we're talking about how the letters or the emails that the staff or the civil servants are receiving, the federal employees are receiving, it says that their performance is not up to standard. Now, there's a couple different things. So whenever you're talking about a civilian job, they will put you may end up on a performance review, right? So you're on a performance plan, which actually does happen with the government. However, there's a probationary period, and it's not a probation like you've done something bad and now you're on probation to prove that you're not going to stay bad, right?
No, it's you've newly been hired, and we need to make sure that you can properly perform the tasks that we want for this position. And you have the next year or sometimes 2 years to mess it up.
And that is standard across every single agency with every employee.
It also can be impactful on an employee if they go from one agency to another. if they take their expertise that they developed in information technology from, let's say, Department of Homeland Security, and then became a Department of State information technology specialist, when they change agencies, the Human Resources Department could say, no, you're new to our agency, this position is titled different than the exact position you had before, you're now on a 2-year probationary period, even if you had 15 years of service.
Yes. So now you've had people that have had 15 years of service transitioning to another agency. And because of the standard, that's just what they tend to do. They tend to put you on a probationary period. That has nothing to do with your current
work performance.
Yeah. But additionally, so they do have a performance plan. So they have like an employee performance plan. So if you get so far and you're now not performing up to standards, they could put you on a performance plan, and they give you basically then that would be what we consider like a probationary period, right? So you'd be put on like probation, but it's not called probation, it's called performance plan something.
You're on a performance plan.
I don't know, I've never was on one, so I don't know. But I do know people who have been on them. So they have it's like 6 months to turn around your performance, right? And then if you don't, then they will start the process to remove you from the agency. So with that in mind, with these letters that are coming out, they make everybody sound like they're shitheads, right?
Yeah, like none of them were performing properly.
And which we're finding is like so far from the truth, right?
It's definitely less than accurate. There's an underlying intent. And
yes.
It's already been spelled out.
Yes.
To vilify civil servants, people who, it's to change the narrative from somebody who's dedicated their life to protecting the Constitution and the American people to be everybody who works as a civil servant is a tick on society, draining from them their life force. And that's the picture that they're trying to paint for civil servants. And I can speak from personal. They want us to be afraid. They want us to quit. And that's heavy. That's really heavy.
Yeah, well, I think the other day you and I were talking about the stressors that this is putting on. Like you, and you gave a great example of how you felt about it.
Oh, yeah.
So being prior active duty, in prior service, right, and being in a combat situation, right, and in being in some intense combat situations. Do you want me to?
No, it's okay. It's so. It's the equivalent of waiting for the next shoe to drop. You sit in combat situations, and there are various threats. Whether it be waiting for the next suicide bomber vest to go off if you're manning a gate, waiting for the next IED to blow up when you're doing route reconnaissance patrols, if you're securing a site, waiting for the first sniper attack to take out one of your people. You don't know when the next evil is going to happen to your team when you're trying to do something that you believe in that's positive. And that's how we feel now. I don't know when the next evil is going to come for my team of civil servants who are just trying to uphold the law. That's all we're trying to do our jobs and uphold the rule of law. And we're at threat daily, and it's stressful. Yeah, it's very stressful.
And I think that what comes about is like, so they want to say that this reduction in force is all about, trying to make the federal service leaner and more efficient, more cost effective, right?
Yeah.
So But I think that there is a disconnect, again, because you have an outside person coming in and really not understanding, and I'm not saying that like there couldn't be some leaning up. There always can be, right?
Oh yeah, constant improvement.
Constant improvement. But I think that the where we're seeing the whole just without regard to anything. I mean, really and truly, that's as just an American citizen, right? That's how I see it. I see it as there's like no regard to what they're eliminating. Now, has any of the services currently impacted me? You know what? I don't know. I know that our farmers. So I'm not a farmer, so I don't. So the aid that they were receiving from the elimination of of USAID, I know that is
It's impacted them.
It's impacted them, and which will possibly impact us, right? So the food that we buy in the store, it might not impact right this second, but it could definitely be coming, and that's a long term. That's like a long-term impact, negative impact.
Hey, I want to take a moment to remind you to like and follow Possibly Pickled. In addition to Yapping My Trap, I'm a novelist writing historical time travel adventure under a pen name, Alex R Crawford. You'll find the link to my books and my website down below. You'll also find links to products we use and want to share with you. Use our links below and receive a discount on your first purchase.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a long-term negative impact.
But I think this just going in and what's part of the problem is the reduction of. There's been a couple of agencies where they've reduced because the people are under their probationary period. They just go and they reduce everybody. They're like, you know what, you're in your probationary period, you're out. And some, like we said earlier, some agencies have like 2 years. So they've been in this position possibly like 2 years.
Or almost, yeah.
Or even whatever they're doing, they're filling a vital role. But they end up
releasing them,
and
like the NRO.
Yeah. I can explain that too in case somebody.
Yeah, NRO. That's the National Regulatory Office, I think. Honestly, I'd have to Google it. It's the Nuclear Regulatory Agency, our office.
Okay.
Not the Nuclear Regulatory Agency. There's so many three-letter agencies, it's hard to remember all the sneaking names. But the people who are responsible for the safety and security of nuclear arms and also nuclear power stuff, we let them go. A bunch of them, and now they can't find them.
And it's like people who are responsible for the in labs. They're doing the same thing, right? So the nuclear, we're talking about talking about CDC or whenever you have or the NHS. Whenever you're talking about that, then you're talking about people unable to help get do the research and the vaccine for like the bird flu. So and then they want to bring them back, right?
Yeah.
So that's the problem. And I remember recently, it was like, when Musk was speaking in in the Oval Office, and he said, oh yes, we'll sometimes get things wrong, and then we'll just,
we'll correct it.
We'll correct it. That's a problem.
Yeah, as a civil servant, I don't have that option of get it wrong and then there's a correction. This is not a business we're playing with. This is not someone's finances or only someone's finances. The responsibility of the federal government is for the welfare of the American people, all the American people. So decisions that you make have people's lives on the line. And that's why Congress enacted a law that covers how to restructure and reorganize the government. It's written in law. There's a process for it, and they're failing to use it. And Congress is failing to enforce that law should be followed. Therefore,
that's what happens whenever
it's going to fall apart.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a problem. It's a problem to have the idea of, we'll just go back and fix what if we screw something up. I excuse me. I was responsible for my agency's every word that went to the public and to up the hill or to the president's desk. I was responsible for I didn't necessarily write every word, but I was responsible for making sure the words were correct leaving the entire agency. Whether it was a typo, which it happens, and man, there is like no room for mistakes, because that mistake was considered, they considered it like almost like it was like, even if it was a mistake, so any words that are coming out of the government is
considered fact.
It's considered fact. And
if you put a wrong fact out,
that's
a serious problem.
That's a serious problem. And
so write-ups, even something as simple as a story about the performance at your agency is like, so it's the original people who are out kind of making the information, right? Because they're out doing their job to support, the American people. They give you info, and then the managers and the social media folks write something up, and then the attorneys want to look at it to make sure that whatever the social media and any of the media types are saying to the public is accurate and lawful. And then after all that's done, we send it to a copy editor who makes sure that commas and periods and all those things are in the right place. And then it's got to go to the HTML person who's got to make sure that they don't mess that up as it gets put onto the web page.
Ask me how many of those positions were mine.
Yeah.
Or responsibilities were mine.
Yeah, so, and then that's to ensure that the government puts out accurate information.
So there isn't the room for, and we'll just fix it, because this is, when we're talking about, way back when in 2008, when a lot of money, and we went to go back up
when the housing,
with the housing crisis. So we had that housing and banking crisis, right? And
cats.
Cats. So we had the housing and banking crisis, and we couldn't, and with the banks, we're like, oh, they're too big to fail, right? So the government came to help bail them out.
Yeah.
America and our government and our society
Too big to fail.
is too big to fail. The banks, that was a problem.
I'm afraid it's too late. Cup's half empty.
I was hoping it was half full. But really, so we're, and to just go and clean it up later is...
It's not plausible.
No. These are lasting repercussions. There's going to be lasting repercussions, and...
Listen, when you're designing a spreadsheet, you mess up the formulas in your spreadsheet, and you go so far, and you've had a couple of wrong formulas. At some times, you think to yourself, you know what, I'm just going to cut this. I'm going to start over with a clean slate, because clearly someone's gone in and screwed with all the formulas and things aren't working anymore. That works for something as small as a spreadsheet that you're working on. It doesn't work for the executive branch of the federal government.
That spreadsheet doesn't bring down an entire economy of one of the world's greatest countries.
Yeah. It's completely plausible that we could be on the cusp. Although some people say we're already far gone. Okay, so what's the solution?
You know what? What's the solution?
I think I have the solution.
Okay. Oh, great.
So the solution is that Congress takes responsibility for their actions.
Okay.
So what does that mean is that Congress enforces the law as they are written. Okay, so that's Title V of the United States Code covers civil service. Actually, it covers agencies. All executive branch agencies are Title V. And Title X is like the military service. So all of these things are available to go and look at on the congressional websites. Let me see. uscode.house.gov. So Title V, Chapter 1, or I'm sorry, Part 1, has a reorganization plan in it at Chapter 900. And that reorganization plan basically says that the executive is supposed to, that reorganization plan says that the executive is supposed to submit reorganization plans to Congress, and Congress is supposed to coordinate with them and approve those reorganization plans, and then of course they get implemented. So there's a way for us to right-size the government, and I would agree that the government needs to be right-sized. I myself work at a federal agency that has a huge amount of responsibility, and we accomplish all of our tasks with under 100 individuals. We do get busy. We get very busy, especially this time of year, every 4 years, presidential transition, regardless of who's transitioning. There's just a lot of work to do. But it's possible to have healthy, safe, efficient work environments in small groups. And also ferret out fraud, waste, and abuse.
Which we'll discuss in a different episode.
Yeah. But the process to reorganize is laid out by law, and we just need to follow the law. And if we did that, all of these things could happen, just as President Trump wants them to happen. But instead of destroying our country in the process, or destroying our democracy in the process, we uphold the democracy and the Constitution. I don't think that's too much to ask.
No, I think that part of the problem too is, and the reason why there is really no pushback, is because one party holds the majority in every branch, right?
Yeah.
And we are getting to a point where like, I think people are, well, I don't want to say think, people are afraid to speak up in the party, in the Republican Party. I think some people are afraid to speak up or afraid to go against the grain.
Well, so that makes sense. I'm afraid to speak up.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like when we're talking about senators and representatives. I think that some of them, like there's been only a handful that, but then they've been come down on. Like I think somebody was trying to say that, like, oh God, I just read it this morning. A representative said that they're trying to pass a bill saying that basically they can't. Like, they have to go with what Trump says.
Oh, so allegedly, I think it's Missouri or Oklahoma, has a state bill that they're trying to pass that basically says, obey the policies of the president, which is creepy, but that's like at the state level.
But do you think that that's something that would have the potential to, like, do you think that there'd be enough pushback? I mean, because I know our blue states, right? So I know like California, like some of those states will definitely not, but we're talking about red states that.
Well, so I would expect that a state that traditionally votes for the Republican Party, and if they're recommending that statute to be passed, it's worth keeping an eye on. But I think I agree with you in that by just recommending the bill, it has a cooling effect across of all of the states that are nearby to that one as far as their politics are concerned. People start getting concerned. Mm-hmm. But it could cause definitely opposite effects in some where people start getting more aggressive towards a division because they're afraid of being marginalized.
Right. So I think that that's part of the problem right now. Whenever they come to vote, even people who are speaking out against some of these policies or these, or the nominees, they still vote for them.
Which are votes against the American people.
Yes.
If you look at recent nominations, not necessarily all of them, but the number of nominations that are so close to the party line, it's concerning. It really is concerning. So Marco Rubio is an okay example for nomination.
Okay.
Right? So Marco Rubio has served time in national politics for a while. He has a good grasp of international relations as they tie to America. He is a solid nominee for the State Department under almost any circumstances.
Okay.
So you had some Democratic senators who were who voted to, confirm him. However, his behaviors since he's been put in office have been almost as if he is, converted conspiracy theorist, to where U.S. aid is suddenly a problem instead of being a tool to secure stability for America globally. So it's funny and to hear him and then also parrot, like, hey, we're going to look to, getting more control in.
I'm just going to cut in here really quick and remind you to like and follow Possibly Pickled, where we have possibly smart conversation. You can support the channel by clicking on one of the referral links down below. These are products that we use and recommend. You can save on your first purchase when using our links. If you're feeling really frisky, go read one of my books. Yep, I'm a novelist writing under a pen name, Alex R Crawford. So Gen X woman travels through time and finds herself tangled up in some historical events. They're fun, they're historical, they're time travel-y, and they're written by yours truly. Links down below. All right, now let's get back to it.
So it's funny and to hear him and then also parrot, like, hey, we're going to look to, getting more control in Panama.
So what I find, I don't know if this is for this episode or for another one, but USAID or USAID and the State Department relationship.
Oh yeah.
Because I think that'll have to be a different one, because right now we're talking about the reduction in force.
Yeah.
I mean, but although it is related, but there's a certain relationship that certain agencies that deal with other countries, right? So there's some smaller agencies
that people don't know about.
We have the larger one like USAID that all work with State Department, right?
Yeah.
And whenever we're talking about eliminating, well, I guess this is fine. Talking about eliminating the workforce. Excuse me. When we're talking about the workforce, we're talking about what they're doing and how they're saying that there's this fraud. Now, whenever it comes to spending, there is, this part is actually for our next episode on fraud, waste, and abuse. But whenever we have these, when we're talking about like getting rid of these people because, they're so corrupt, it's not a corruption. I mean, I've been deep enough in some of these agencies to know.
They're doing what they're told.
They're doing what they're told. They're absolutely doing what they're told. And to have the to have somebody, the Secretary of State to say that there's fraud it's a goddamn lie.
Right.
Not to say that there is money being spent that probably shouldn't be spent, and certain people insisting that the money is spent in certain ways. So that would be in the fraud, waste, and abuse section that we'll talk about in our next episode on that. But it's not the civil servants that are just doing their goddamn job.
Yeah. Right.
And I'll tell you the issue on that spending comes from the top.
Oh, yeah. So when they're ordered,
so to say that they need to get rid of all the people and eliminate an agency because they're doing illegal shit, they're not doing illegal.
They're doing what they're told.
They're doing what they're told.
By the administration and Congress.
And I will tell you something, and it doesn't matter what their belief, as long as it's legal, right? It doesn't matter what their belief is on something or who they voted for president. They'll do their job. I worked during Trump's first administration, and I was writing an article in regards to farmers in, Peru. I did not work for USAID. Working for farmers in Peru, I can't remember. Anyways, there was an issue with the farming that their crops weren't going because it was an issue because of climate change. Now, that's not to say that we were causing the climate change or anything else other than
the climate is changing.
The climate is changing. And they were having issues with farming their land with the crops that they used to farm because of the climate change. I could not write that they needed funding because climate change has impacted their crops. Because during his first administration, we were told climate change does not exist.
Shifting weather patterns.
So I said shifting weather patterns because it was, which is climate change, right?
They just don't like the buzzword.
They just don't like the word. So
they like their buzzwords.
Right. So
I suppose we all do.
So just because I wanted to argue and say, but it is climate change, you know what I said? All right, no problem. I will not use the words climate change.
Because that's my job.
Because that's my job. Or that was my job, right?
Yeah, the concept that we're actively defying legitimate executive action is a falsehood. That is paved. If you believe that, then like all of the veterans, don't serve their country. None of them do. Because none of the civil servants do. They take the same oaths.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
I had my hand raised.
Similar oaths. But we all swear to protect the Constitution. But that's it, the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's why we follow the rule of law. We follow the instructions. And trust me, I rail against rules all the time, where I'm like, this does not make any sense to me. Please help me understand it. But if it's written down as the guidance that I'm supposed to follow, and it's in a federally issued executive branch publication that says, we put periods at the beginning of all of our sentences, then guess what? I'm putting a period at the beginning of all my sentences. I may go to my friend and say, this is stupid. Why is we doing this thing? But I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to put periods in the front of everything and then tomorrow go to Fox News and be like, these idiots are making me put periods in front of everything, because it's not my job to go out and talk about how we're being instructed to, make the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You're still getting a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The president just wants us to put the peanut butter on first, but we don't care. We're just here to do our job, to take care of the American people.
Yeah. And I think that that's when people, and I've read numerous boards, and people just, there are people very much out there that are like, they're just doing what we voted for. You know what?
They're not doing what you voted for.
They're not doing what you voted for.
You voted for the legal reorganization of the nation. That's what you wanted. You wanted a new government. You wanted it clean, more efficient, and there is a way to do it. There's a lawful way to accomplish that. That's what you voted for. It's written into the law. You did not vote for the complete undermining of all of the executive branch's offices and the Congress to lead to a potential dictatorship. The fact that I'm sitting here today probably means that I'll be fired soon. But that's okay. Not really, but...
Your girl does like to eat.
Right? Ditto.
But it's important. It's an important topic to discuss.
Yeah.
And it's important for people to see that there is more. I don't want people to think that whatever comes out is just immediately disregarded. Anything that comes from the president is immediately disregarded, or Trump, right? Because it
doesn't happen like that.
It doesn't happen like that. And and the fact that, there was the case, some unions were coming up trying to stop the reduction in force. But I think, they're focusing on one part of it. And because there is only so much that you can focus on whenever you're taking, you can't just, they have to give their reasoning.
Yeah.
And they get I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, do they get their one reason to try to fight it? And then that gets the limit. And they're like, crap, nope, they said they could continue. So now we have to come back with a new argument, that one argument of why it needs to.
Well, so that's interesting when you talk about the what are the groups called?
The unions.
Sorry, it happens. So that's interesting that how you talk about the unions, because in that particular case, if I understand properly, it was that the judge found that the unions themselves didn't have standing.
Oh.
So the unions brought the fight, and they didn't have standing, so that was the reason why that one was turned over.
I thought that's what part of what unions were supposed to do.
Was to represent the people.
Yeah.
But they may not have had the people. You know what I mean? So someone needs to bring the argument, right?
Okay.
So as an example, I sent a letter to an attorney asking for guidance and assistance related to Title V, United States Code 903, which is the reorganization of the government or the executive branch, and has to do with reorganization plans. And do I have any right as a civilian employee? I haven't been removed yet. Do I have to wait till I can be removed to open a lawsuit and fight against it, or what? It takes the individual. Oh, like the IG or the special counsel's office.
Who now
works for the VA.
Yeah, but there was now Trump, the administration is going to the courts to ask for permission to get rid of them.
Oh, well.
Because they said, oh yeah, you can't get rid of him, but I think like the argument of why they had to take him, they had to rehire him, was because that's not the way to get rid of for his position, right?
Yes.
So they just said you're out, and so they're like, nope, you did not do it properly. He gets his job back. So now they're going to the courts to ask if they can eliminate him.
Yeah. So
that sounded really bad.
Yeah. So the special eliminate him, right? The special counsel's office. Their position is appointed for a timeline. Mm-hmm. I actually can't speak really educated about that, other than a brief glance of the letter that the council wrote, or at least the argument that they made for court. It being that they weren't being removed because of some sort of poor performance, and
the same general letter everybody got.
Well, no. Well, he may have received the same general letter that everybody got, but there are certain things that you can remove that special counsel for.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
And it's not simply, I want to remove him. There has to be a grounds for it. Mm-hmm. And that's why they argued they didn't prove any grounds for my removal, so they can't remove me. And key to the argument is the way Congress has written the law to appoint these individuals, so they are nonpartisan. A good example is the Office of Government Ethics and their director, who is appointed for 5 years. The last appointee was appointed for 5 years by President Donald Trump, and he served a couple of years in the Trump administration and several years within the Biden administration. And after a full 5 years of service, on like the 5th year to the day, he resigned. He left the position because it's a 5-year appointment. And he was a very neutral, center of the road, obey the rule of law kind of guy appointed by President Trump, which was great. And then we got another center of the road, rule of law, follow the instructions of the law and the president, so long as we're not asked to violate any laws. And he was a very center of the road, rule of law person, and he was removed.
Yeah, I saw that in the news recently.
Yeah.
With the whole list, I remember hearing about that, and I remember seeing that he had just been appointed like November, December, like just at the end of last year,
Yep.
So
His confirmation.
There we go.
It was confirmed by Congress in December.
So he served a month?
Something like that.
And the removal was simply he couldn't have done anything within that month to violate what his job was supposed to be or do, right?
Yeah. So in that particular position
mm-hmm.
for the federal government, it is a 5-year appointment. And in the statutory guidance, I was not able to find the general language for removing such an official. It just says, by law, appointed for 5 years. There's got to be probably in that Title V statute somewhere for removing senior executive people or politically appointed Senate confirmed individuals. There's got to be a process for removing them. But when they're appointed for those time frames of like FBI director, 10 years. Okay. The Office of Government Ethics is 5 years. Inspector Generals at like 8 years or 5 years.
I was going to say, I thought they would try to make them so like they would break in the middle of a...
Exactly. So they break in the middle of an administration.
Yeah.
So the intent is so we have a nonpartisan group of individuals who work at the federal level who obey the law and obey the law. And so long as all of the elected and appointed individuals continue to obey the law, we're going to follow their rules. We only don't follow if they're breaking the law. And even then, our recourse is not to not do the work. Our recourse is to tell Congress that, hey, we're being forced to not follow the law. So the work still gets done. Mm-hmm. We just reported to Congress that we're being told to do it the wrong way. So I don't understand. They call them whistleblowers. There's a process for all of this.
Oh yeah, and I mean, but then they're they're getting rid of all the people that are involved with the whistleblowers, right?
Yeah.
So that was like the head of whoever's supposed to be responsible for that part for whistleblowing.
Yeah.
Is gone. So I don't know. It seems like we are in the middle of a very dangerous time of eliminating relieving. I keep on saying eliminating. It sounds like we're killing them. I mean,
it feels like
it. It feels like it. Yeah, but removing these people from their position, and it's unsafe. It's not good for our country. It's not good. Okay. Go ahead. What was the voter turnout?
So the voter turnout was 63.9%. So
Okay.
that must be of the eligible voters.
Okay.
Of course, that gets diluted even more when you talk about actual population. Mm-hmm. But of the eligible voters, 63.9% turned out. It was higher in 2020 with a 66.6% voter turnout. So if we had 69% turnout, and of that 69%, 49.8, or half of those, voted for Trump, right? So half of 63.9, so half of 64 is 32. So 32% of American voters are people who voted for Trump. 32% of the population, of the voting population,
Voted for Trump.
voted for Trump. So that means 32% of the population, we're calling that a referendum.
So which is funny because I do see people who obviously voted for Trump, but then I see so many people that are like that absolutely did not, right? And I'm like, how are all these people, like I see and maybe it's just because of what algorithms give me, right?
Yeah,
That,
your news feeds.
Yeah, and my news, and you see so many people like, I didn't vote for him, and then I'm seeing people that are like, I voted for him, wish I didn't, right? But I think that I think that when you say like basically 32% of the voting population voted for him, I think that that's 70% that really didn't want him. Right. So but
didn't do anything about it.
So okay. So let's wrap this up. So what can, I know you had mentioned it before. So what can we do? What's the way ahead? What do you see as the way ahead?
So I think the solution is to spread the word to all Americans, to let as many people know as we can that there is a legal way to restructure the executive branch. We want the legal way to be followed, and we want Congress to ensure that it's followed. And the only reason to do it that way is to protect America's infrastructure, to protect America. This is not about, mind you, doing so might help save my job, so that's somewhat personal.
I'd appreciate it.
But the fact is there's statutory guidance of how we're supposed to do this. And we should follow the statutory guidance. These aren't regulations that civil servants recommended and put together. These are actual statutes passed by Congress, signed into law by presidents that we're supposed to follow. And the more people who know about it and talk about it, the more pressure we can put on our government to follow the rules that they themselves have written and are required to enforce. So that's the path ahead. And because the more people who know about that and talk about that, the more likely we are to get our Congress people to actually act on it. But time is limited. Time is extremely limited. If they do not act before the expected government shutdown in March, they are most likely not going to act at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah, we're pickled.
And
Not possibly.
I need to get pickled after this, man.
Yeah, ditto. We're supposed to talk about good stuff.
I know. You were promised a happy sandwich. The topic was a bit heavy for it, but I hope the cameo from the cats helped a little. A little bit, maybe? Anyways, thanks for watching and listening to me and Roland discuss the way ahead on Possibly Pickled. We'll see you next time while we hide in the basement getting pickled. Possibly. And having a possibly smart conversation.